Y'all are muted by default when you join the call, but feel free to go ahead and unmute yourselves for a few minutes
Hello.
until we get the until we actually get the call starting, and then we'll mute everybody to keep it orderly.
Like those headphones, Nathan.
Hey,
Thanks.
Caesar.
Hey, what's up?
Did you bring my pizza?
No, I'm waiting for your pizza.
Oh man. Cool. Glad you make a nice beard.
Thanks. I like yours too.
Thank you.
Yep. So, hey Emmanuel. Let's switch to gallery view so I can see everybody.
How are you?
Hey, doing good. Thanks for joining. Good to see you. All right. Caleb, hi. Maria, hello. Carol is here. Isaiah. And Isaiah, remind me again, your wife is Christy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
Got it. Okay. Hey there. Hi, Christy. Nice to meet you.
Too.
So, hey, there's JD. Hi, JD. And let's see. David Aguilar, I think. I'm not sure if we've met, but welcome to the call. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And let's see, we've got Tom Giblin. Hello, Tom.
Good morning.
Glad you could join us. Thanks for being here. Hey, there's Elliot. Hi, Elliot. And we've got Josh. I always forget your last name. Is it Sprague or Sprague? How do you say that?
It said Sprague.
Sprague, okay.
Yeah.
Sprague. And let's see, who did I miss? There's Trevor. Hey, Trevor. Good to see you. Chuck Tate. Hi there, Chuck. Welcome, welcome. We'll see. All right, wonderful. Oh, and there he is. There's Mr. Ben. Hey, Ben, how you doing? Hey, Ben, you're muted. Click your. There you go.
Old, tired, ugly, and fat.
Well,
I'm looking for Pam Grimm. I'm trying to get her in.
okay. I don't know.
We have a Grim in here somewhere. I'm not sure if it's Pam or not.
My lovely wife and my daughter. Hi, Kelsey and Abby.
We have a Larry Grimm, but I'm thinking maybe that
that's her husband.
Never mind. Looks like they were able to connect to audio. So yeah.
Okay. Hello. Hey, Grimms, you might want to turn your device. You're sideways to us. If you can turn. There you go. There we go. All right. This is wonderful. Okay. Oh, here comes Pat. And good. We'll try to see if we can get everybody on. Nelson, hey, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you.
Very cool. Well, we ended up with about 30 people in the WhatsApp channel, which I was really, really grateful for. And so we'll see if we can get everybody online here. Oh, here comes Jeremiah Charleston. Hello, Jeremiah. And Dane Balia from South Africa.
Hello.
So good to see you. Hello, hello. I don't even know if we've ever done a video call with you before.
Ever.
It's great to see you. So, all right. And here is Denise and Mike. Hey, Denise and Mike, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. Okay, let's see if there's anybody else that I missed.
Yeah, Tiana just popped in. Hi, Tiana.
Hello,
not officially,
Tiana.
but she's photobombing in on Elliot's account.
Ah, gotcha. That's great. It's cool when husbands and wives can connect on the same Zoom account. That works.
Yeah, some people, yeah. Maybe we just won't go there.
So, Dane, this is your wife next to you or your daughter? Or?
Yeah, it's my daughter.
There we go. Okay.
She does have the same beauty as her mother.
Okay, yeah. She was a little low on the thing. I couldn't see. So, what's her name?
Shekinah.
Shekinah. Hi, Shekinah. Nice. You may not be able to hear me, but good to have you.
Yeah. Josh just says
all
hello.
right. Hello, Shekinah. Hi. Thank you for coming. Yeah. All right. Okay.
All right. Well, I think we've got 25 participants in here. We've got 3 Charlestons all lumped into one, 3 for the price of one. So I think we're pretty close to all the people that we should have. So you ready to go ahead and kick it off?
I think we're set. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. And I just want to let everybody know that this call is being recorded, but although it's not for quality control purposes. There are a few people that would have liked to have been here, but couldn't make it. And so we're going to go ahead and record the call, and then we'll be able to give those folks access to it later. One other quick thing is that Josh is going to be sharing his screen. He's going to be showing some slides and doing a presentation. And once he does that, you're going to be seeing, let's see. Can you guys, Josh, can you see
I can see your screen.
The screen? You're going to be seeing something like this right here. You'll be seeing a slide, and you'll have a little floating window with some thumbnails on there. And if those thumbnails bother you, if you hover over it, there's a couple of things that you can click up there to collapse it down or to minimize it, or you can also go up here to the view options section and you can hide the video panel altogether. So that's just if that little video panel gets in the way of you being able to see the actual content on the screen. I'm also going to go ahead and mute everybody here in a minute. At the very end of the call, we'll be having some question and answers. And so if you do have questions and answers, save those toward the end. If you have something that just can't wait, feel free to put it in the Zoom chat or the WhatsApp chat, and I'll be keeping an eye on those. And I might be able to just message you right there. And if it's something that we need to clue Josh into, then I will I'll be sure to let him know about that. During the call, we'll be referencing a few links, some resources, places to go afterwards for subsequent steps. And we will be providing you a list of all of that stuff at the end of the call. So don't feel like you have to write it all down in the middle of things. So anyway, I think that's all of the pre-show announcements. Does anybody have any questions before I go ahead and mute you and turn things over to Josh? Going once, going twice. Okay, well, I think Josh will go ahead and let you do your thing.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Nathan.
Let's see.
Ben is waving.
Okay.
Ben, unmute yourself. Do you need some? I don't think he can unmute himself.
I haven't force muted him yet, so he should be able to unmute himself.
There you go. Try now, Ben.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Hey, Josh or Nathan, just real quick, will you guys give a 30-second to 1 minute history here, just to kind of get folks online who may or may not understand the history of Bible First? That was all.
Yes, and I'll give a quick overview. Part of that will be in the presentation. So if you're completely uninitiated, you're going to learn about Bible First. But the really quick synopsis is that in the early days when we started in Ukraine as missionaries, we ran into some difficulties and looking for different methods to help reach out to people. And through a series of events, we ended up writing our own correspondence course, which is called Bible First. I know that many people on the call today are familiar with that to some degree or another. Some of you have even used it in ministry and so forth, which is great. And so the purpose of the call today is to talk to you about this application that we've been building called Bible First Online. But we've been using Bible First, the correspondence course itself, for many years here in Ukraine. I would say it's probably it's the core of our ministry, and it's how we get the gospel probably to the most people. And so we're very excited about it, excited to share it with you, and we're really glad you're here. So there'll be more detail coming about that in the presentation. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, let me go ahead and start by sharing my screen. All right, so you guys should be seeing are you seeing that, Nathan?
Yes.
Okay, great. So here we go with the presentation. All right, so let me see if I can reduce the size of this video. There we go. All right. So pioneers, we decided to call the group pioneers. And this is a quick refresher on what that is. A pioneer is a person who is among the first to explore or settle a new country or area. A person.
Sorry, Josh. I need to
Unmute. There we go.
There you
Can
go.
hear me?
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. So running through that again. Pioneer. Who's that? A person who is among the first to explore or settle a new country or area. A person who is among the first to research and develop a new area of knowledge or activity. And if you've been working in missions or evangelism for any length of time, you've probably felt yourself to be a pioneer in some capacity. So with that, I'd like to welcome you to our presentation today and to our group, Bible First Pioneers. And I want to start out by pointing out that we don't consider you guys to be pioneers just because you joined our group or because you joined this call. On the contrary, we invited you here because we believe that you are pioneers. You're people that have been involved in missions, you've been involved in evangelism. We've worked personally with many of you, and we know that you have a vision for spreading the gospel, and it's for that reason that we've reached out to you. Now, our group today is relatively small, although it's not bad. I'm really pleased that we got this many people together. It's a blessing. But yet we are spread across, as best I can tell, 3 continents and 4 different countries as far as the people represented right here in this call. More interesting still is to consider the places where people in this group have traveled to preach the gospel in recent memory. Places like India, South Africa, Brazil, Ukraine, Mexico, Greece, Bangladesh, and even the People's Republic of Minnesota, to name a few. So, hey, Hendersons. Now, one thing, all joking aside, one thing that I believe unites everyone in this call is that we are people who are willing to go wherever God calls us, even as it says in Acts, unto the uttermost part of the earth. So thank you very much for being here today. We know that your time is valuable, and we're very grateful that you've chosen to join us for this presentation. So before we really get into it, I want to start with a quick overview of what we'll be presenting during this call. Of course, we'll be showing you the app we built, which is called Bible First Online. We'll talk about some of the problems that this app aims to solve, how it can be useful to you, why you would want to use it. We'll go over how the app works, including a live demo of some of the major features of the app. And of course, we'll give you instructions about how you can begin using the app. As Nathan said during the presentation, I'm sure there will be questions or things that you maybe not fully understand or want some clarification. And we would encourage you to post those questions in the Zoom chat window. If there's something urgent, Nathan can ping me and we can address it right there. But when we get to the end of the show, we'll have a Q&A session, and we'll try to have some time for everyone to get their questions in and answer those at that time. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Now, I'm sure probably most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with our CMO project, where guys come over during the summer times and they serve with us. And when they come here, we usually have a small missions conference, like a one-day conference for those guys. And one of the things that we always tell them is that in missions and evangelism, our methods may change depending on the time period we're working in, or the people groups we're working with, or what our resources are. Methods may change, but the message never changes. The gospel is the same today as it was 2,000 years ago. That does not change. That said, there are times in history when God opens particular doors of opportunity which allow us to penetrate the darkness more effectively. We believe that God has led us to such a door, and we'd like to invite you to help us fling it open as wide as possible while there is still time. And we're going to talk about what that door is today. Now, before we dive in and look at the Bible First Online app, we need to lay a little bit of groundwork. And I realize that some of you have more or less history with us in our ministry, so some of the things we say here may be a little bit repeat, but we want to lay the groundwork so that everybody's on the same page. To begin with, let's talk about the gap. And no, I'm not referring to the gap theory in Genesis. We haven't got time to go back that far. In this context, the gap is a reference to a common barrier or hindrance experienced by all of us who have ever attempted to tell others about Christ. So to illustrate this gap, let's consider some common outreaches that I'm sure we have all been a part of at one point in time or another. Now, these are all ministries that we do regularly here in Ukraine as part of our CMO projects. In fact, many of you on this call have been with us and participated in these ministries. There's Nelson right up there talking to the gal on the retaining wall. That's Ben preaching right in the middle of Lviv. That's a fellow named Cornelius passing out tracts there. We show gospel films. And let me stress, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with these ministries. On the contrary, they are absolutely biblical. They are necessary. There's certainly more that we could name. And these are wonderful things. We're going to keep doing them. I know that you guys have been involved in similar things, and they're great. Having said that, if you've ever participated in these things, you've probably seen a problem. And no, the problem is not that guy on the ladder. The problem is something else. It stems from the fact that most gospel outreaches are one-way broadcasts. In other words, we go out, we stop somebody on the street to hand them a tract, we talk to them at the park, we talk to them on the plane, we show a gospel film, and we initiate some kind of a meeting and we broadcast the message to that person. And yes, there may be some dialogue that occurs right there, but largely we find that we're the ones communicating to them, and afterwards it's difficult to convert that first encounter into something that's longer. Now, we'd certainly all like to convert these first time encounters into long-term relationships. We talk about discipleship, and we want to make disciples, but sometimes that can be easier said than done. We find that, we talk about making disciples and teaching and inviting people to church or home Bible studies, but I'm sure we've all been out there on the street and had a great conversation with somebody. They seemed positive. Maybe they even said they were going to come to church with us the next day or something, and they didn't. We'd all like for that to happen, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. And experience has shown that most people aren't ready to take the plunge after a first encounter. That's not always the case. You might be blessed to run into somebody that God has been working on them and they were right there and he organized that divine appointment, as we like to call it, and off you went. But a lot of times you talk to somebody and then it seems like there's a bit of a disconnect. How do we follow up? How do we keep going? Now, this reaction probably shouldn't surprise us, but it can be frustrating nonetheless. If a person is not ready to commit after hearing our Romans Rose speech for the first time, what can we do? I'm sure we've all kind of felt like this little guy. I've given you my gospel presentation. I gave you my business card. I invited you to church. I invited you to my home Bible study. If you're not ready to go with that, I don't know what else I can give you. I'm out of options here. If you've ever experienced that, then you've been to the edge of the gap. And it's summed up maybe like this, that if these folks that we're encountering in evangelism, if they're not ready to cross over to us in the traditional ways from that first encounter, come to our church, come to a home meeting, whatever, what can we do? How can we take them further? And this is particularly frustrating when you feel like that the person you're talking to is not closed to the gospel. Now, of course, there are people who are antagonistic towards the gospel. Maybe they're atheists or whatever. But in my experience, in the years that I've been on the mission field in many countries, I've found that most people I talk to are reasonably open to the things that I have to say. And yet we have this feeling like once this encounter ends, I'm never going to see this person again. How can I get over this gap? Well, you need a bridge. If you come to a gap and you need to get to the other side, you got to build a bridge. So we're going to talk about bridge building a little bit. That's going to be our little metaphor here. Now, it's not enough, I would submit to you, that it's not enough to just go to them once and have a quick chat. That's not to say that God can't use an encounter like that. Of course, God and the Holy Spirit are not limited. God can use a 5-minute conversation where you tell someone, you know what, Jesus is a wonderful Savior. He changed my life. Here's a gospel tract. You never see that person again. God changes their life and does something miraculous. He can do anything. But my point is that to the extent we are able, if we can go farther and stay longer, if we can meet that person where they are, we can bring someone to Christ that might not otherwise have come. They need time for their ears to be opened. Many times a person in rejecting the gospel, so to speak, is not rejecting it because they've already decided they don't want that. Their ears have been closed by years of sin, by years of rejecting God, and they're not hearing you. Jesus talked about this when he was ministering on earth. He said that people's ears and their eyes would be opened and that they would understand and that I should heal them. And sometimes that takes time. The Bible also talks about the idea of God giving people space to repent. Now, sometimes that's up to God, but I think, again, in as much as it's in our power to do it, if we can provide a bridge where we can cross over to them, stay longer, and teach them, I think we find that we can bring more people to Christ than perhaps we otherwise would have. So to illustrate this a little further, let's have a little pop quiz here. 2 kinds of people in the world, the lost and the saved. We're all very used in missions. We're all very used to seeing the world in that context. how would you fill out this little quiz? And I realize everybody's muted at the moment, but I think for most of us, if we saw this, the answer would be second nature. Evangelism is for the lost, and discipleship is for the saved. And I want to stress that this distinction is not unbiblical. The lost do need to hear the gospel. That's what we're supposed to bring them. And if a person is born again, they need to be discipled. They come into the church, we teach them, we disciple them. That's completely biblical. But let me ask you this. Is it right to think that lost people are only eligible for a simple gospel message and nothing more? I think most of us would agree that if you could convince somehow a lost person to sit down with you and study the Bible, study something deeper than just the basic gospel message, that would be wonderful. To put it another way, should we disciple a person before he's born again? All the teaching that I've had growing up, discipleship is almost always presented in the context of people who are already believers. But to illustrate this a little bit further, let me share with you briefly our story of what happened to us when we very first came to Ukraine. Now, when I was first here in the early days, I started out working with another missionary, and we organized a church. It was a Baptist church. And let me just say that this guy, he's passed away now, but this was a man that I had great respect for. He was a wonderful missionary. He was a wonderful father and a great Bible teacher. He learned Russian better than probably any foreigner I've ever met. He was an outstanding missionary. But in this particular time, we started working together, and we organized a church. And essentially that meant we got a building, and, metaphorically speaking, we put a sign on the door that said, Baptist church, whatever. And we started inviting Ukrainians to come to our church. And when I say we invited Ukrainians to come, we didn't just go out and talk to a few people here and there at random places on the street. We blanketed the area where this church was with tens of thousands of invites. I mean, I was directly involved in that. But what I found, to my chagrin, was that the vast majority of the Ukrainians we talked to were very skeptical of us. They were even afraid, and they wouldn't visit a service. I saw people who would kind of like come to the door and peek in, but they wouldn't step across. They would spread these rumors that we were doing all kinds of crazy, superstitious stuff in there. And it was frustrating to me because I felt like I'm trying to minister to these people, but I can't get them to come in my church. And if they won't come in my church, there's inside the walls, so to speak, then there's not much else I can give them. And I began to realize that a lot of the religious labels that we were using, like, Faith Baptist Church or whatever, were forming a wall. Now, I'm sent out of a Baptist church, and I'm not at all trying to bash people who have Baptist churches or want to use that label. I don't personally use it when I'm witnessing to people, because I find that it closes more doors than it opens. But again, this is our testimony of what happened. We started to realize that these people weren't turning away from us because they were diametrically opposed to the idea of salvation by grace through faith. They were just turning away because they were scared of us. We were foreign to them. We were different. There were social pressures. They didn't want to be caught going to somebody's church that was considered to be a cult. They looked at us much the same way that you might look at some Mormons or some Jehovah's Witnesses. And so I came to the conclusion that we were blocking our own message. It wasn't that people, as a missionary, your very, very first, most fundamental calling is to faithfully communicate the gospel to the lost. There's a lot of other things that can happen around that, but I would say that's the core. We are ambassadors for Christ. He's given us a message, and it's our job to communicate that message clearly to the lost. Now, if they reject the message, then of course that's out of our hands. That's between them and God. But if we fail to accurately or effectively communicate the message to them, then that's our fault. And we need to be willing as missionaries to get rid of whatever is in the way, whether that's the way we talk, the way we dress. If you've ever read the biography of Hudson Taylor, you know how he was one of the first missionaries in his age to adopt the national dress of the Chinese so that he could overcome those cultural barriers, so that, like Paul said, that nothing would hinder the gospel from going forward. So as I started to realize that, and other people on our team, we started to take some steps to try and overcome that. Now, let me illustrate this further with kind of a diagram here. I think this illustrates how probably a lot of people, both believers and unbelievers, view the dichotomy here between Christian and non-Christian, or the saved and the lost. On the left here, we have the believers, and they're sort of inside the church. And here in the church, we have all the good stuff. We have the Bible teaching, we have the discipleship, all the programs. And of course, we'd really like for the world to come into the church. We were once in the world. But at least And I don't think for us, we have any desire to construct this wall of division between us per se, but I think there are a lot of people in the world that do see it that way. From the outside, it looks very much like a barrier. Now you might say, well, what we need to do is invite people into the church. That's where they'll hear the teaching. If I can just get them to come to my church, my pastor, he's more articulate. And for a lot of churches, I'm sure you've probably interacted with people like this. For a lot of churches, that's kind of the extent of their understanding of evangelism, is that evangelism is you invite people to church. That's what you do. And let me again stress, there's nothing unbiblical whatsoever about inviting a person to church. We have definite biblical precedent for unbelievers coming into the church, hearing the gospel, being saved, things like that. And it does happen. I know there are lots of testimonies where people somehow, slipped through, they got in the church, they heard the word of God, they were saved, and that's wonderful. Now, I think all of us here have come to the point where we realize that that is not the complete calling that we have. That is not the complete embodiment of the Great Commission. It's okay to invite people into the church, but probably more importantly, we as believers are called to go out of the church. We need to penetrate that wall, either literal or perceived, and go out into the world with the gospel, bring the gospel message to where the people are. So at this point, you're saying, yep, you're preaching to the choir, Josh. We know that. That's why you're a missionary in Ukraine. That's why, Emmanuel's been visiting Greece and other places. Denise and Mike are getting ready to come to Ukraine. All of our ideas about evangelism and missions revolve around this idea that we're going to go. We are from the church. We're sent out of the church, but we go out of the church into the world to reach people with the gospel. But at this point, we are right back where we started with our whole gap problem. We go out of the church, we bring the gospel to the people, but we sort of have this unspoken assumption or requirement that they need to come right back in. We'll make a short foray out there, we'll give them the gospel, but they need to pretty quickly come back inside the church with us, because if they don't, we haven't got anything else. We're just gonna have to leave them there. I mean, maybe you can talk with them again. Some people you witness to them over the course of years, but a lot of times I think there are situations where we go out, we present the gospel, they aren't ready to receive it, maybe they don't understand it, whatever, and they don't come back in. And so I would suggest to you that there is a further step here that's part of the Great Commission, and that is to take this Bible teaching and discipleship that we are so accustomed to having inside the church and take that out to where they are. Teach them the Bible. I know for me, I've ministered much of my life amongst Catholics. And just from a strategic point of view, if a person is a Catholic and you ask them, are you a believer or are you a Christian? They're going to say yes. And if you come along as a Baptist or a Protestant or whatever, and you say to them, no, you're not a believer, you're a Catholic, you are messed up. I'm a believer. I go to Faith Baptist Church or whatever. Let me show you how I can fix you, because right now you're broken. So let me bring you over here and fix you, and I'll show you how you really can be a believer. That might be very correct, but that's probably not the best way to convince a Catholic that they need Christ, that they need to be saved and born again. You need to come alongside. And we found much better success by saying, are you a believer? Oh, great. And just take them at their word. And then if you can get them to study the Bible, sit down with them and start taking them through Genesis. And I would say this, that our ministry here is built on the philosophy that the scriptures are the most powerful evangelistic tool that we have in our arsenal. And yes, if all I have time for is a quick gospel presentation, Romans Road, whatever, that's wonderful. I'll do it. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if I can get a sinner, an unbeliever, to come with me and sit down and say, study Genesis together, that is a whole new level. There's no way for me to have concrete data or show you a graph, but I feel very confident that if I can get unbelievers to study the Bible, that I can increase their chances dramatically of coming to know the Lord. Why? Because the word of God is powerful. It's quick and powerful, like a two-edged sword, piercing even to dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and as a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the hearts. I can put together explanations and tracts and slideshows, but my words are just that. They're my words, they're the words of a man. But God's words are living, they're eternal. And if I can bring the holy, living word of God and the lost sinner together, that is powerful. One other point here, we were talking about discipleship and whether or not discipleship is for saved people or lost people. Remember that when Jesus called his disciples, every one of them was lost. When he called people to follow him and they were called the disciples of Christ, they were not yet born again. Now, for those of you who understand dispensations, I know what you're going to say. Yeah, Josh, but nobody was born again then. Jesus hasn't risen from the dead. I know that. But the the example remains. These men, Peter and John and Paul, different ones, they were, well, maybe not so much Paul, but Peter and the early ones, they were disciples before they were believers. So I think this is needful and legitimate for us to teach and disciple unbelievers. And I think that can result in them coming to Christ. All right, so I hope I've driven that point home. Now, let's move to a new thought here. You might say, all right, Josh, that sounds good. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid now, but you haven't solved the problem yet. We'd all love to teach unbelievers the Bible if they would come listen to us. I dare say any of us before you got on this call today would have already had that viewpoint. If an unbeliever said, hey, could I come to your house and just have you teach me Genesis or Romans or the Gospel of John? Everybody here would have said, yeah, wonderful, come on over. I'll make time on my schedule for that any day of the week. But how do you do it? We still have this gap in between the missionary and the unbeliever. And that gap might be literal. It might be geographical, like maybe you meet a person on a plane and you have a great conversation with them, but they're from a different country than you. They live on the other side of the globe and you're going to part ways and that's it. They can't come to your house. They don't live anywhere near you. Or that gap might be social. It might be your neighbor down the street who's just skeptical. They think you're kind of weird and they're just not comfortable coming in. I'll give you a real story. There was a time when we rented an apartment here in Ukraine as our office. It was one of the first places we rented as an office space. And we were doing English clubs there. And they were English clubs with the goal of presenting the gospel and teaching people the Bible and so forth. And we would invite people to come and we would give them, I think we had some cards that we printed and we would put the address of this place on there and invite people in. We literally had a Ukrainian one time who came all the way to the door and I saw her standing outside. And it was only then that she realized that the address she'd been given was an apartment and she wouldn't come in just for that reason. It was too weird for her culturally to go into an apartment of somebody she didn't know. And we said, hey, there's other people here. We're not gonna, we're not be drinking goat's blood at midnight. Come on in. No, she wouldn't come in. So we find that this gap remains. How do we solve it? Well, there are probably different ways, but one way that we want to present to you today, it's something that we have experience with and something that we have used repeatedly, and we're not the only ones. Many missionaries have used this to great effect, and that is correspondence ministry. Folks, that can be your bridge. Correspondence ministry can help you go farther and stay longer. We have ministered the gospel to people in every oblast in Ukraine because of correspondence ministry. This can allow you to reach people that you're far away from, people that have never, that you don't know, people who are too afraid to come into your church or come to your Bible study. But if you send them a Bible lesson they can read in their home, they're open to that. And certainly there are some people that won't be open to anything. Maybe they're just opposed to the gospel. But I have seen lots of people who they wouldn't come to church, they wouldn't come to a Bible study. They weren't ready to believe the gospel. They didn't understand it well enough, but they were willing to sign up for a Bible course and study the Bible. So there came a time when we wrote our own Bible correspondence course. It took us several years to do it, but it's now been, I believe, more than a decade that we have been ministering to people in Ukraine with Bible First. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Bible First consists of 20 lessons, and we take people through the book of Genesis, not just giving them the Old Testament story of Genesis, but using the types and parallels there to introduce Christ. And this course is designed specifically to be evangelistic. This is not just Bible knowledge course. This is not just, tour of Genesis like you might have in Bible college or something. This is designed with evangelism in mind. Now, there is one thing that's kind of been a hitch over the years for us, and that is the fact that our course historically has been a paper-based course. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are pros and cons. And if you'll look out to the right of our Jeep, you'll see real live CMO men in the wild, and they are packaging starter packets, as we call them. These are envelopes, and they're putting copies of our first lesson, lesson 1, into the envelopes. There's also an introductory letter, and I think a return envelope. And we would take these starter packets and we would give them to people after film showings or on the street or whatever. And of course, there are a lot of pros. The course has all the bridge benefits that we've been talking about, reaching out to people, overcoming cultural barriers, things. The paper course is simple to use. You give them a lesson 1, they read the lesson. At the back, there's a quiz. They answer the questions. They give it back to you or mail it back to you. Then you send them the next lesson and you get this correspondence going. In fact, we have found that many of our readers actually prefer paper. I know sometimes I do when I'm reading something. It's nice to have a paper book. We all know what that's like. However, there are also some, oh, I didn't realize I didn't have that on. So there's my pros, the bridge benefits, simple, easy to use, readers prefer paper. So here's the next one though, the cons. The lessons can be expensive to print. Now for us, that's not really been a problem. We're full-time missionaries, we have a budget for this, but we've encountered people who the cost has been a barrier to entry. We've also had problems with lessons getting lost in the mail. Students waiting on us, we're waiting on a student, and the lesson just disappeared at the post office. But I would say that the most worrying of all these cons, if you will, the problems, is that the paper-based course is difficult for nationals in developing countries to replicate and to use in ministry to their own people. Imagine you have a person who comes through the Bible correspondence course using these paper lessons, and they get saved. Hallelujah. So what's the first thing you want to do with a new believer when they get saved? You want to turn them around and get them ministering the gospel to others, to their own people. So this guy says, wow, I gotta print these lessons, and I gotta get envelopes and stamps, and I gotta deal with inventory, and I'm running to the post office all the time. And let me tell you from experience, if you have 3 or 4 students, it's not that bad. You get up to 30 or 40 students, it's starting to get tough. You get up to 100 or 200 students, it's madness. I mean, it can really get out of hand. And I know of people who have actually, their correspondence course fell apart because they couldn't keep all the plates in the air at the same time. When I was being trained as a missionary, one of the principles that was taught to me, and I believe this is true, is that people you lead to Christ will naturally feel that your method is best. It's what they know. And they in turn will want to emulate your approach. So the name of the game then is to win people in as much as possible with methods that they can turn around and reproduce. Now, we believe that the correspondence course is on the whole reproducible. It's just that the paper-based aspect was a little bit problematic. So what did we do? We built an app. And that finally, now we come to the core of what we want to communicate to you today, is this application that we built called Bible First Online, which in a nutshell recreates the correspondence ministry that I've been describing to you in a completely digital platform. You can use paper if you want, and we'll get to that, but you can use it completely electronically, completely over the internet with zero paper involvement, which brings a lot of benefits. So as we get started with that, let's have a 30,000 foot overview of what Bible First Online is. I know you've been hearing about it. Those of you who have followed our ministry, you may have been hearing about it for a long time as we've been developing it. Denise Ireland now is here with us today, and she may be more familiar with this thing than I am. She's used it for years when she used to work with our team, corresponding with people, and it was wonderful. So what is this thing? How do we describe it? Well, to start with, Bible First Online is what we call a web application. And there are pros and cons to that as well, but one of the big pros is that a web application is platform agnostic. In other words, it doesn't just run on Windows or run on Mac or just Android or iOS. You can run Bible First Online on any device that can connect to a web browser. It's not, just to be clear, this is not an app that you're going to be able to download from the App Store, and that's on purpose. But it does mean that you can use it on your phone, which brings me to my next point. Bible First Online works great on either desktop or mobile devices. And as you'll see in a moment when we get to the demo, there are times when you might want to use it on one or the other or both. The app is centered around a coach-student relationship. That's what we call it. Now, internally, we tend to use words like missionary and the lost and whatever. Most people don't get too excited if you sign them up in a group that's called the lost. So we've chosen to use the terms coach and student. So if you're the missionary and you're mentoring people within this app and trying to teach them, you're a coach. And the people that you're signing up, the people that you're trying to witness to, they are the students. So as I said before, the app recreates digitally the traditional correspondence ministry. You send your student a lesson and he reads it online. He completes a quiz at the end electronically and submits that quiz to you as the coach. You then grade the quiz. You send it back to him. You can discuss different questions as needed. We've had experience doing that with the paper lessons. We would all the time, somebody would miss a question and we would write a comment. Yeah, that's not quite right. Why don't you check back on page 5, read this section where it says this and see if you can try again. And we found that the magic, so to speak, of this relationship and some of the greatest and richest opportunities for evangelism occur in this back and forth correspondence relationship as you're grading lessons and grading quizzes and things like that and talking with these people. And we found that people would even, as time went by and we built trust with them, people would even start to send us questions that were beyond the scope of the material in the lesson itself. So with that, let's have a quick demo. I'm going to show you the app right here on my screen. And I can't show you the whole thing. There's a lot to it, and you'll have a chance to learn more in detail. But I'm just going to give you a taste of some of the basics of how this can work. So let me make sure I can do this. I'm going to exit my presentation here. And all right, can everybody see this Bible First browser? Nathan, you see that? Hopefully you can.
Yep, I see it.
Okay, cool. All right, so here's the scenario. This is the Bible First Online homepage. If you go to biblefirst.online, you'll see this page. This is the landing page. And this is the same site that both coaches and students use. So it doesn't matter if you're a coach or a student, the app can tell the difference. You come to the same page. So I'm going to come here, and since I'm a coach, I'm going to click sign in. I'm going to quickly sign in with my credentials. This is a test account we've set up just for demonstration purposes. And what I'm looking at here is my dashboard. I get some basic information about how many students are registered in this account, different ones that are active, comments. I can click over on the registry, which gives me a list, kind of a log list or roster of all my students. I can click on individual ones to view their profile. I can go here to add a new student. We have search tools to find a student by their last name or by their phone number. All students in the system have a unique ID number. So if we've got a search bar up here, if I type in the ID of a student, I can find him immediately. It'll jump right to his profile. So there's a lot to explore here, and we don't have time to get into it all. But one thing I want to show you that's one of my favorite parts of the app, and it's very useful in evangelism, is our sign up tools page. And it's this little rocket link up here. If you click on this rocket, it'll take you to this sign up tools page. And there's a lot of things in here. We'll go over them. But one thing that you see in here, if you look down in this coach resources section, I'm going to blow this up just a little bit bigger. It might be easier for folks to see. You'll see some different entries here. We have a sign up key. This sign up key is like, you can think of it like a promo code that you use when you're getting a discount online or something. Anybody that has this key can sign up as a student in my Bible First Online account. And there are other ways you can share this. You can give someone the key by itself. We'll see how that works in a minute. There are also unique sign up URLs that are associated just with our account. And I can copy that by clicking on one of the links here. I can click on this QR code and maybe download a PNG of it or an SVG, whatever, that can be printed on tracks. These links are specific to our account, and we can use them in social media all over the place. Going back to the top, we have these green and blue buttons. I don't know how well you guys can see the text, but it says invite now, and then underneath it says English, and then this says invite now, and underneath that it says Ukrainian. That's because our account supports 2 languages, English and Ukrainian. So if I click this big invite now button, it pops open this window with a QR code right there. And if somebody were to scan that code, it would take them directly to the sign up form for our account, and they'd be able to enroll as a student. I can also click this icon here, and I can switch it to just show them the sign up key. Some people aren't friendly with QR codes, or maybe they don't know how to do that. So you can just show them the sign up key. And they can do that. Now, if I click the Ukrainian button, the Ukrainian green button, I get the same pop-up, but in Ukrainian. And the QR code would also take them to the Ukrainian version of the app. Now, having shown you just those few things, let me give you a scenario of how this can work in witnessing. Now, when you're at home and you're managing your students or you're corresponding with people, it's probably more convenient to use Bible First in a desktop web browser. You have more room, especially if you're looking like at this registry view. But let's assume for a minute that I'm out on the street and I've got my smartphone with me. So I'm gonna shrink this down to where it looks like a smartphone here. I'm carrying this around now. I'm on the same page that I was on, but you notice that all the elements kind of shrink down and they fit nicely even on the small screen for a phone. So I'm talking to somebody and we're having a good conversation, and this guy is interested in what I have to say. He might be somebody that would want to sign up for Bible First Online. Now, he also has a smartphone, and that's going to be represented by this other browser over here on the right. And so what I can do is I can click, if he's interested in signing up for the course, I click this Invite Now button, and immediately I get this full screen slide over, and I can just show him my phone and say, here you go. Here is a QR code. Just scan this, and it will take you right to the sign up screen. So I'm going to simulate him doing that. Now he's over here on the right side. He's on the main home screen for Bible First Online. If he were to just click on the sign up now button, it would take him to this screen which says, please enter your sign up key. Now, as we've seen, I have the sign up key right here, or I can click this pop up and I can click the key and switch around. I can say, okay, just enter the sign up key. And so he could come over here on his phone and he could type in, D6C342. And if he hit continue, it would take him to the sign up screen. But if he scans the QR code, then it would be the equivalent of him going, say, to this sign up URL. I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to paste it over here in the other browser. This would simulate what he would see if he scanned this this code on my phone, and he's right here. Now, what I'm going to do is sign him up. We're just going to call this guy Bob Smith, and I'm going to use a temporary email here for Bob. I'm going to paste that in and click sign up. And so he gets a prompt that says, hey, check your inbox. Or if you didn't get the email, click here to resend. I'm sure we probably all had something like this where you sign up and you get a confirmation email in your inbox. So I'm going to go back over to the inbox and bingo, here is the account activation. This is a little temporary email service. Account activation email. It's going to check my browser to make sure I'm not a hacker. Okay, so here it is. It says, hello, Bob. Thank you for joining Bible First Online. In order to finish setting up your account, please click the activation link below. So he clicks the activation link and it takes him back over here. I'm going to switch it back to phone view here. So he's on his phone. So I need to set up a password. So we'll type that in. And bingo, Bob is now on his dashboard. This is how it would look if he's on the phone. He's looking at lesson 1. If I exit out of here, then it would look something like this. I can make it even a little bit bigger. It would look something like this. So he sees the first lesson right there on his dashboard. If he clicks start now, he can see the lesson and start reading it. He can click this button here to download the lesson in a PDF format, or he can just scroll down through it and he can read it right here. And if you've ever seen our Bible First lessons, this design follows essentially the same format. We've got the images, except now they're in color where possible. The did you know boxes, all those things. There's a table of contents on the left where he can click to jump to different sections. When he's done reading the lesson, then he goes up here. He can click the begin quiz button here, or at the top, there's a quiz button. He clicks that and it takes him to the lesson 1 quiz. And so what is the meaning of the word Bible? That is book. And then we save and continue. God is the exclusive author of the Bible, and every word therein is inspired by him. Continue. And I won't fill in all the answers, but he just tabs, or he clicks through, he fills in the answers to all the quizzes as he goes through. Now, let's say, for example, that he's on question 8 here. Let's stop for a minute and go back over to the coach view. Now, I'm gonna exit out of the phone view and go back to the dashboard. And I'm gonna look over here at my registry, and sure enough, here's Bob Smith, new student right there, signed up. So I click on his name, and now what I'm looking at is the profile page for Bob, for my new student. And there's a lot to digest here. You'll get used to it if you start using the app, but I'll just go over the highlights. There's a green box right here, which shows me kind of like the status of the student. And it says he's begun the quiz and is currently working on question 8 of 20. So you really get a granular view, if you're the coach, of where your student is. Did he start reading the lesson? Is he on the quiz? Is he waiting for you to grade the quiz? So you've got this.
Hey,
here.
Josh, can you blow up that page just a little bit?
Yeah.
Some of the text is kind of small.
Yeah, let's see if we can. I'm going to just expand this window out a bit here for the coach, and we'll blow it up. Is that better? Yeah, hopefully that's better. So I can see that he's working on question 8 of 20. I've got his student ID over here in the upper right. I can see that he has an online account, what his language is, when he joined. I've got a comment thread where I can, let's say Denise and Nathan are working with me. I can leave a comment here and say, hey, Denise, what about this? What about that? I've got his profile tab, which shows me some of his contact information. There's a settings tab. There's all kinds of things in here that I can use to manage this one student. Now, back on the student side, let's suppose that this guy, he's on question 8 of 20. Oops, back over here. He's on question 8 of 20. And let's say that he closes his browser, he backs out, he just goes to the home page. the system remembers where he was. So he can come back here, he can click read and go back to reading the lesson so he can reference it again. By the way, they never lose access to the lessons. Once they're in, they can read them, no problem. If he clicks the quiz, it drops him right back in the quiz where he started. So he progresses through like in a stepped set of forms, and the program always remembers where he is. If he stops in the middle, it drops him right back in there. So I'm just going to click through to the end. Now it doesn't make you enter an answer. You can enter blank answers if you want. I'll just quickly click all the way through. And you can see there's different kinds of questions. There's simple fill in the blank questions. There's multiple choice questions. There's like radio button questions that you can click. And if you've ever done Bible First, these are the same questions that we have in the printed lessons. They're just now on the digital platform. So there's question 20. So we get all the way to the end and we land on this quiz summary screen. And he can look through and see the answers that he filled in. He hasn't actually filled in very many. Let's say he comes and he says, oh, that one, I didn't answer that, it was blank. So he can click this edit button and he can jump right back there and he can enter an answer, save and continue, and then he's back to the quiz summary. He can review his work, he can make any edits or changes that he wants, and then when he's ready, all the way at the bottom, there is a submit quiz button. So he clicks that. Are you sure you want to submit the quiz? Yes, I'm sure. He submits the quiz. And now the quiz has been flipped over to the coach. It's locked on his side. He can't edit anything. But back on the coach side, if I refresh here, I can see, oh, we have received the student's quiz. It's now ready for grading. And if you're that student's coach, you'll also get an email notification letting you know, hey, Bob Smith submitted his quiz, so you can go grade it. So I click the grade quiz button, and now it takes me to the quiz for Bob. And I can see all of his answers. I see the question, I see the answer that he provided, and then every question has this little toggle switch next to it. All of them, for the time being, all of them default to correct, which is the green. But if you see one that's incorrect, like, yeah, I don't think that was the right answer, I can just click the toggle and that is incorrect. That's incorrect because it was blank. Okay, this guy had trouble. We'll give him a few other ones. All the way down we go. And then at the end, if I see that he did really badly, like, oh, this guy didn't understand, I can decline the quiz. If I'm ready to go, I can click grade on the quiz and that will unlock the subsequent lesson. One other thing that I want to point out is that this quiz has a built-in comments feature. So for example, all of these questions have a little drop down underneath them. I can click this comment drop down and say like, hey, Bob, try again. I don't think that was right. And I can click post and, I've added my comment there. And then over on Bob's side, let me back out of here and come back in. So I go back to the quiz and he sees a little badge that, oh, you have one unread comment. And if he scrolls through, he can see, yeah, sure enough, here's the comment. And there's my question, so he can answer, oops, sorry, there's the right answer, post. So this is important because when you're working with somebody, this back and forth that you have, that can really be a key area where you can have discussions and minister to this person and really build trust as you talk about these various questions through the quiz. So anyway, I'll come back over here and we'll wrap up the demo with me grading his quiz. Submit the grade. Yes, I submit the grade. And so it shows at the top, he got an A. If you hover over it, it'll show you the percentage grade, give you some stats about that. Back to student profile, we go. And it tells me now lesson 2 is unlocked and available on the student's dashboard. They've not yet begun reading. So if Bob comes back to his dashboard now, and by the way, he'll get an email notification when the lesson has been graded or the quiz has been graded. And now you see that in this main hero section, it says lesson 2. That's now his current lesson will always be at the top there. All his completed lessons will appear down here as cards, kind of in a feed as he finishes them. And so he can click start now, and the same process repeats again. He can read the lesson, he can do the quiz. I can keep track of him over here. I now see that he's begun reading the lesson. So we really kind of give you a pretty tight integration between coaches and students, and we try to facilitate as well as we can this back and forth conversation, this correspondence, which again, we believe really facilitates that Bible teaching, that discipleship, even of a person who's not yet a believer, with the goal of bringing them to Christ over time. For some people, that might be a shorter amount of time, for some longer, but that's a quick demo of how the app works. We'll have more information on that later. So with that, let me try to get back to the presentation here and we'll finish things out. All right. So at this point, I want to share something with you that we believe makes Bible First Online as a tool and as an application truly unique. And the feature that I'm going to share with you now is admittedly something of a technical concept. We have a few people on the call who will know immediately what I mean by this. For many of you, this will no doubt be a new concept, but this feature that I'm about to present to you has very real and practical benefits for global mission work. And at present, I'm not aware of any other tool or application that provides this kind of functionality for people who are focused on missions. And that feature is what we call multi-tenancy. And I know what you're thinking, yay, multi-tenancy. What is that? So let's talk about it. What do we mean by multi-tenancy? Multi-tenancy means that when you use Bible First Online as a coach, for example, it'll be like having your very own copy of the app. You might think, well, Josh, it's great that you guys have this app and you've got all your students in there and your coaches, but how would I use it? I mean, are my students just going to get dumped in with yours? No. This app was built from the beginning with multi-tenancy in mind. That means that we have complete data separation between accounts. So if I have an account here in Ukraine with my students, Denise could have an account somewhere else, Ben could have an account in Virginia, or Manuel, whoever, and there's data separation. The students and the coaches and everything, they don't mix. This is huge because that means that this application as a ministry tool can potentially be scaled to an infinite number of accounts. Let me explain it in a little bit different way. So here in Ukraine, we built this thing. We have the web app. We've been using it for a long time. We have our own sign up key, which you've seen. There's a QR code that goes with that. There's a special link that's just for our account. We have coaches that are Ukrainian speakers who are in our account. They're using those codes. They're ministering to people, signing them up. We have students that are signed up, and we have these conversations and this teaching and discipleship going on. And all of that is happening within our account. Now, let's say Ben sees this and he says, wow, this is great. I want to use this in Virginia, man. When I go out and do evangelism, I want to sign people up. Well, it wouldn't work very well if Ben was signing up students with our link and our QR code. They'd be dumping into our account, and it would just get to be a bigger and bigger and bigger mess. And you'd have all these people who were speaking different languages, and it could be very disorganized. Because of multi-tenancy, we can sign Ben up for his own coach account. And that means he gets a complete, fresh copy of the app. But the difference is he has all the same functionality, but he has a blank slate. He has his own sign-up key. He has his own unique link. If he wants to print tracts for his own outreach there in Virginia, he can print that stuff on there, and it's completely separate. His students and his coaches have no connection or knowledge of our group over here in Ukraine or of somebody else's group in Germany. Let's say Emmanuel wants to grab it and go do it in, I don't know, Brazil or Greece or wherever he's going next. He gets his own account. And you can do this in different ways. You could have groups of people working together. If you're in the same area, you might want to have 3 or 4 coaches that get under the same account because they're working in the same area and inviting students, and they're collaborating together, as we have done here in Ukraine. Or if you're going to another part of the world, you might want to open your own account that's going to be language specific for the people that you're trying to reach. It's also possible that a student, or that a person who starts out as a student in one account could come through, get saved, want to have their own ministry. They could go through our coach certification, they could get their own account, and bam, now they're ready to go. They can replicate that ministry that they're familiar with in their own work. So to sum that up, Bible First Online provides the technology for a digital implementation of 2 Timothy 2:2. That is, we commit the things that we have learned to faithful men, people that are our students that are signed up, and we equip them to be able to teach others also. Now, yes, we tend to think of 2 Timothy 2:2 as a verse that involves believers. But again, I would submit to you that teaching the Bible, even at a deep level, to unbelievers can be critical, and it can be fundamental. It can be a turning point for them in bringing them to an understanding of the gospel. And when they do come to Christ, you now have a ministry framework that's both familiar to them and easily produced, so that they can go out and teach others also, as it were. Now, as we draw to a close here, let me go over a few final benefits that you might consider of using Bible First Online. For one thing, as we've said, this provides the opportunity to tear down borders. You can reach people anywhere. Once you have an account and you have your link, your QR code, you can print that thing on a business card. You can put it on social media. You can share it wherever you want. You can set up your own landing page and put a link to that on there to sign people up. It's an ever-present hook for gospel fishing. I love this this idea of the phone, where you have that QR code on their phone, you're talking with somebody. If they're ready, you don't need to remember to bring your business card or a pen or whatever. If you've got your phone and you're logged into your Bible First account, bam, you show them that code, or you show them the sign up key, and they can enroll right there on the spot. And then you can go your separate ways, and you now have a connection. And it's not, I mean, yes, you could share your phone number, give them a business card, but that can be a little more awkward, because it's like, okay, if I call you, why am I calling you? Hey, Bob, remember me? We talked at the park yesterday. Oh yeah, that guy. Hi, how are you doing? What did you have for lunch today, Bob? You know, it can be a little bit awkward, but with the app, you now have a connection with a purpose. This person knowingly signed up to take your course, and they know that you're a certified Bible First coach. And presumably, if they were positive about that, they're ready to open the app and get started. This builds evangelism participation in your church. Not everybody in church is ready or feels confident running out there to preach on the street or pass out tracts. But if you tell someone, hey, I can add you to my Bible First account as a coach, and you can help me grade lessons from these people that are coming in. People have different giftings and different talents in the church. And I believe that a system like this, and we've experienced this, that a system like this where you have a course that has different facets, different things that need to be done, this can bring in more of the body of Christ, and it can be a great central ministry or an evangelism program, either for an individual, but also for a church. And I think it can bring people out of the woodwork and give them something to do. It's what you might think of as an instant ministry in a box for a new missionary. You go to the field, now assuming you can get over the language barrier, you go to the new field. If you've got this app and it's in your language, bam, you're ready to go. You can go out there, you've got the link, you can print it, share it, you can sign people up. You already have a platform that can get you going as you're getting your footing. As we've said already, this is reproducible by new believers. They sign up for an account. There can be, in theory, an infinite number of simultaneous parallel Bible First online accounts anywhere in the world. And you can have, again, you can have multiple coaches and students grouped in one account, or if you need to, you can break off and do your own account that's like a fresh slate, completely separate. I want to stress that Bible First Online can handle electronic students, like people who sign up as online users, and offline students. One of the people that's with us right now is Maria, and she has had a wonderful ministry doing Bible First with prisoners, with inmates. Now, as you know, inmates usually don't have access to the internet. So you might be thinking, well, this is not for me then. Bible First Online was designed such that when you add a student, they can sign up themselves as an online student, or you can also add them yourself as the coach, and you can add them as an online or an offline student. And if you want to bring them paper lessons, like maybe you just need to mail them to the prison and get them back, you can do that. And the student has they don't have any visibility of the app, but they're still reading the materials. They're answering the paper-based quizzes. And then you can use the app to manage your students on your side. And let me tell you from experience, when you have just a few students, it's not too bad. But if you get up really big and you start to have, 30, 40, 50, 100 students, it can get overwhelming. And Bible First Online was specifically designed with this type of ministry in mind. And there are tons of helpful tools there, everything from search features to reminders that let you know if a student hasn't sent in a lesson in a long time, contact information. All of that is managed for you in the app. Now, I want to talk a little bit about translations, because as missionaries, we all know that language is a big deal. So is there support for other languages? It's great that we have this in Ukrainian, but what about English? What about Spanish? And the answer is yes. Bible First Online was built with internationalization, what we call, as programmers, we like to call it I-18N, from the very beginning. And that means two things. First of all, if we're talking about the actual Bible First content, the course content, that is the lessons and the quizzes, they can be consumed in the student's language of choice. So in theory, I can sign up a student and give him Spanish lessons or Ukrainian lessons or English lessons. As a coach, I can choose. And when a student signs up, especially if I know that I'm ministering, let's say I knew I was ministering in a Ukrainian area, I would give them a sign-up link that contains the Ukrainian locale code, and then that would take them immediately to a Ukrainian sign-up form. They would get online with the Ukrainian course, all of that. So that's the course content. It also means that the language of the app interface can be set by the user. So as a coach or as a student, when I log in, I can set the interface, so the menus and the buttons and all those things, to be in the language that I'm most comfortable with. And that doesn't have to be the same for everybody in a given account. It can be different. Coaches can also choose to support one or multiple languages in their account. So let me again use Ben as an example. Let's say Ben gets started in Virginia and he's just kind of working on his own, and maybe, I think Ben doesn't know Spanish, but let's say he doesn't. So he says, well, I don't really need Spanish lessons. I can't talk to Spanish people, so I'm just going to go English only. But then let's say there's a guy in Ben's church who's Hispanic or who knows Spanish and says, hey, man, I'd really like to help you out. I could help you grade Spanish lessons, and we could start reaching out to Spanish folks. He can activate the Spanish edition of Bible First in his app, and then you can use two different links. You can have an English, you can have a link that sends you to an English language sign-up page, and a comparable link still scoped to your account that would send you to a Spanish language sign-up page. And now that he's got another coach in his account that he's added who knows Spanish, they can share the load, and now that same account can handle two languages. Now, so you may be asking, okay, which languages are available? At the moment, we have English and Ukrainian available and ready to go. Spanish has been completely translated thanks to Maria, and also a lot of work on that by Ralph Villeneuve, who's also with us today. It's not ready quite in the app yet. We still need to finish translating the interface. Also Russian, the lessons is essentially completely translated into Russian. We still need to do the interface. So those are coming soon. English and Ukrainian ready to go today. So wrapping things up, what are the next steps? Yay, we've heard about Bible First. We've heard about Bible First Online. Hopefully we're excited to get to use those. What are the next steps? Where do we go from here? Relative to our group here, the Pioneers group, as we said when we started this out, we've asked you here because we need your help. We've built this thing, it works, it's pretty much ready to go, although there are still things that need to be done, but we need your help in testing this, in not just clicking around and playing with it, but using it on the street, trying to get real people to sign up for it. So what's the best way to get started with that line of thinking and using this on the street in real life ministry? Here's what we would like to suggest that you do. First of all, everybody who's here today, we're going to give you the opportunity to sign up for a student account. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, I thought I was going to be the missionary here. And you are. The reason for signing up for a student account, number one, not everybody here is familiar with the course materials themselves. And if you're going to be, Bible First Online is directly built around the Bible First course. And so if you're going to be using those materials, teaching people, you need to be familiar with those materials yourself. And signing up for a student account and going through that will help you to be familiar with that. Now, some of you might say, well, I've used this course already in ministry. I know it like the back of my hand. I don't need that. We'd still like you to sign up for a student account. You don't have to read every word, but just click through, fill in the quizzes. We've set up a test account. We'll be in there as coaches. You can click through and submit the quizzes, and that will give you a feel for what your students are going to see. You'll get familiar with the interface from the student side of things, which is very, very important. So you'll work through the lessons and the quizzes. When you're ready and you get done, you feel like you've got it, you've been through the course, you're comfortable with the material, let us know, and we can set you up with a coach account. Step 4, you go win the world for Christ. Now, I want to move on to talking about some feedback. As we've said, we would really like not only to just give you this thing and say, well, here it is, go use it. We want to hear about your experiences. We're sure that there are ways we can tweak this, that we can improve it. There may be bugs that you discover. So how to deal with feedback. We'd like for you to post general feedback and questions in our Pioneers WhatsApp group. We're going to keep that going. And I'm sorry, I'm sure there were some of you that didn't have WhatsApp. As it turns out, there are a lot of messaging platforms and nobody ever had, there's no one platform that everybody's already on. So it seemed like a lot of us were on WhatsApp. It works well. For the time being, we'd like to use that. So if you want to be active with us moving forward, what we'd like you to do is stay in that group. And as you use the app, post questions and feedback to that group. Also, we'd like to suggest that you share and discuss your experiences with other members of the group and look for solutions to the problems that you encounter. Some problems that you encounter may just be a matter of ignorance. Maybe that you just don't know how to do something yet because you're new to the app. So ask and see, maybe somebody else knows how to do it. I want to point out that we have people with us today who are experts in this. Again, Miss Denise Ireland, who worked with us for many years. I think she's done far more with ministry and Bible First than I ever did. She was for a long time primarily responsible for the actual correspondence, sending and receiving letters. She had her own jail ministry going on. And Maria Sanchez also has a lot of experience. The Hendersons have used this, other ones. Of course, Nathan and I are here. So discuss your ideas, share information, and come up with suggestions. Maybe you found something that's kind of a hole or a sticking point or didn't make sense to you. Let us know. Let's see if we can improve it. Hopefully this goes without saying, but please be kind. Don't mock or attack other people in the group. We're all learning together. To some extent, we're all new here. That's the whole point of being a pioneer. We are pushing into uncharted territory with this application. Maybe you found a bug. Now, I want to stress that as touching the software, we believe that the software is pretty stable. We've used it for a long time. This is actually the third iteration of correspondence course software that we've developed. The first one was way back in 2007. We built another app called CBC Admin in the early 2010s. In fact, Dane Balia helped us a little bit when we were working on that one. And then Bible First Online now is our third iteration. So a lot of the architecture and things have been well tested over the years, but that doesn't mean you won't find a bug. If you do find one, try to give us as much detail about it as you can. Maybe a screenshot would help. As you go through, maybe you'll have an idea for a new feature. Now with apps, you have to be careful. You can get into something called feature creep. We can't just tack on any new feature that comes. So if you come up with an amazing feature that you just know has to be in the app, let us know about it. We'll take a look, no promises, but we do want to hear your feedback on that. You never know, it might get worked in. Also, if you or someone you know have experience in web development, we would welcome your help. Missionaries have to wear lots of hats. And over the years, I've studied web development a lot, but I still consider myself to be a missionary first and a web developer second. And you might be thinking, wow, why is this taking you guys so long to build this thing? And the reason is because we're not just programmers here, we're missionaries. We got families, we got ministries. We don't have the luxury of just sitting 8 hours at a desk and writing code. And so it's taken some time, some trial and error. But we would love to attract help. And now that we have an app that's working, we're hopeful that other people will hear about this and be interested in coming on board and helping us with the technical side. That would be phenomenal. So where do we go from here? Here's some resources. And as Nathan mentioned, you don't have to scramble to write this down. We're gonna post it in Zoom and on WhatsApp. But this is the sign up link. So this is actually a short link, this BFST.co. If you've ever used Twitter or something like that, you may have noticed sometimes there are short links that you get provided that then forward onto the full link. We have that too, that you can use the full Bible First Online link. You can also use a short link. This code right here, this 4R3793, that is the sign up key for this account that we've created just for the Pioneers group. Please don't share that online. That's not intended to be a ministry account. It's intended for us. It's intended to be internal, where you'll sign up as a student. We'll be in there as coaches. We'll go back and forth and learn. So the very first next step after you get off the call, if you want to really dive in and get started, go to that link and set up your student account. We've also set up a documentation website, and Nathan has been working really hard on this. While I've been putting together a slide presentation and playing with colorful icons, Nathan has been writing documentation about how this app can be used. So when you first get in there, the interface may be a little overwhelming. You may wonder, like, where do I start? Go to the documentation website and you'll see all kinds of guides in there. We need to expand them more, but the basics are there, especially for the student side of things. You know, how do I read my lesson? How do I submit a quiz? How do I leave a comment? How do I change my password? Where's the profile? How do I message? I didn't even get to that, but the app has a built-in private messaging system that you can communicate between coaches and students. Lastly, we have an info center that we've set up that is specific to our Pioneers group. It's called the Pioneers Info Center. It's pretty sparse at the moment because we just got it finished. But if you go to this link at the bottom, jsua.co, Pioneers Info, it'll take you to a page. And this page is intended just for our group. It's a place where we'll put information that's relevant to the group. You know, the sign up code, the docs link, maybe the replay for the Zoom call after we recorded it. In comparison, the online docs site, so the second one in my list here, that is a public site. We'll continue to develop that, and new people from anywhere in the world who come and they want to know how to use the app, they'll be able to go there. The Pioneers Info Center is just for us. It's a place that we can share information with you. It's not editable by you, but as we come across maybe FAQs or tips or links that the whole group needs to know about, we'll post them there. We could post them, of course, in the WhatsApp thread, but as you know, with messaging threads, you post something in there and then it starts to work its way up and it eventually gets lost in all the other messages. So we've got this info center. So pretty much that wraps up the formal part of our presentation. That is Bible First Online. We are so grateful that you're here and that you took the time to sit through this presentation. We're excited about the potential that this app could have. We're looking forward to working with you and hearing your feedback, making this better, and ultimately putting this into the hands of missionaries and evangelists and churches all over the world and seeing people use this to really reach out and bring folks to Christ. So we'll stop there. Thank you so much for your attention.